Okay, this is March 14th, 2024, a spotlight on romance. And with us tonight is Catherine Diehl. Catherine is a native Michigander, meaning she has a favorite Great Lake and can point to the exact location of her house on her hand. Hmm.
It's a Michigan thing.
Okay. Lake Superior, with all of its majesty and mystery, owns Catherine's heart. Camping with her family on its shores is a highlight of her summer every year. She loves all things caramel, coffee, hockey, shopping, baking, and decorating her house for every season and holiday. She is a very visual, spatial person, so everything in her house has a place, but sometimes looks better in a different place, which drives her husband nuts. Speaking of her amazingly talented husband, they live in a house that he built with their three children and a fuzzy child, Gordy. If Catherine is not holed up on her couch attacking the keyboard, you can find her teaching high school English language arts and choir and taxiing her children everywhere since all three of them are in sports and hockey season never ends. They are always on the go, and Catherine wouldn't have it any other way. Thank you for joining us tonight, Catherine. And you are
Hello.
going to talk to us about kayaking and scuba diving for romance.
I am. Which one do you want to start with?
Let's start with the kayaking because it sounds a little bit safer.
Well, I mean, maybe, sure. Okay. Oh, I had a dog just come in here, so my door is not open. All right. So, kayaking. I don't have any kayaking. I don't have anything kayaking in my novels yet. I have it planned for, I think, book 5 of my open skate series, which is the first book's out now. I'm just starting to get all my stuff out. It's been a long time coming. I had an agent. I couldn't find a publisher. And then I'm like, okay, it's time to get these 5 books that I have written, going. So it's taken me a little bit because I'm super picky. But anyway, so kayaking is gonna be, I think, book 5. I think I have it set up for my Wisconsin Milwaukee Glaciers series. And book 1's out now, and I'm halfway through book 2, but I have to release 3 other series starters first because I'm crazy and I have to have 5 books going at once. So, the kayaking thing, there's 3 different kinds of three different kinds of kayaking. So it depends on what you want your character doing. And we're going to start with recreational because it's the same kind of thing. So, the recreational is going to be a flat boat. It's going to be a short flat boat. So you're looking at a boat that's maybe 12 feet ish, maybe. No, not even. Probably your average one's about 8 to 10 feet, I think, for a recreational kayak. Um, and recreational kayaks, you can buy a skirt for, but you don't have to. The idea with a recreational kayak is you can throw your kids in it in a nice shallow water with a life jacket on and have them paddle. And if they fall out, they swim to shore and you're good to go. That's what the whole basis of a recreational kayak is. Like if you're gonna have your character wanting to kayak, like, rent a kayak and go out, with their friends or something of that nature on like a day thing or an hourly rate or something like that, it's gonna be in a recreational kayak. Reason for that is you have what's called a skirt. Okay. And I don't have any near me because they're in my pole barn and it's cold out and I'm not going out to get one. So, the skirt is, you can have a skirt for recreational kayak and you can have a skirt, and you have to have a skirt for the other two, which we're going to get to in a second. But it's a neoprene um thing that goes around your waist. It's about that long and it's like a corset. But it has neoprene that goes out the front and the back, and it's got a rubber seal on it. So the idea is that it goes over top of the opening so that your legs are watertight. Okay. So if you're going to be in a recreational kayak and you have your characters in a recreational kayak, they don't need to have a skirt. All they need is a paddle and they just go out and play. If you're going to get more technical and they're going to get into like touring kayaks, which are the super long and skinny ones, or where they want to jump off of waterfalls. Then you need a skirt and a helmet and a life vest. I mean, you need a life vest regardless, but the skirt is necessary because when you tip over, you have to right yourself without getting out of your boat, which is literally like the hardest thing on the planet. So if you know how to roll, then literally it's called rolling. So if you know how to roll, then describe that, because that's not like it's a hard thing to learn. Like if you take kayaking classes, um that's like the main thing that you learn. I mean, anybody can like paddle a boat, you know what I'm saying? But the rolling thing is takes a long time because you have to learn how to do it, and then they flip you upside down and everything's backwards because you have to learn how to do this upside down while you can't breathe and your legs are strapped into a boat. It's not easy. So the touring kayaks and I just forgot what they're called. And the ones where you jump over waterfalls with, which is the ones I have, and I can't think of the name right now. I just totally went blank. I'll look it up in a sec. So those are you have to have the skirt, and then you have these knee braces. They're built into the side of each kayak. So if this is like the kayak, the knee braces is here and here, and it's this plastic like groove, and you tuck your knees up in there. And when you flip over, you have to take your paddle and you have to put it down to one side, and then you get your knees in there, and then you have to do this flick with your knees, and you have to flip your hips and do the swish with your paddle like this and right yourself. And that's how you roll to get back up. Like all those kayaks, like if you watch people when they flip over in a kayak and they're down and then they're up again, that's because they do that in like 2.3 seconds. Like it's amazing. It took me a long time to figure it out. And then I was like, nope, I don't like it anymore. So I told my husband when he goes on these little like whitewater kayaking excursions, whitewater, that's what it is. Durr. Okay, so when he goes on like whitewater kayaking excursions, like when we were dating, he would stick me in raft guides, and like he'd be like, okay, you go in this inflatable raft thing where if you fall out, you have to go to shore, and they give you a little tiny paddle and you have to sign a waiver. And that was way more fun for me because I mean the kayaking thing, when I'm going down or like a rapid, it's intense, really intense. So it wasn't really my cup of tea, but it was my husband. Speaking of which, I pulled a picture off of our wall because everybody should have a picture of their husband jumping a waterfall in a kayak in their bedroom. Here you go. So jumping a waterfall in a kayak in your bedroom. I don't know if you see that or not, but there you go. Circa like 2000, 1999, something like that. So yeah, it's been a while. Okay, so recreational. Oh yeah, touring. Let's go back to touring. Touring kayaks are super long and super skinny, and they're super tippy, super tippy. The recreational ones are flat because the flatter a boat, the slower it is, but the more stable it is. Okay, the touring ones where they're like super long and skinny, they look like bananas. Those, and they usually have a rudder. Those are super fast, but they're super tippy. So that's why you have to know your roll in order to do it. So, when you are kayaking and you want to go distance for a long period of time, like backpacking excursions or something of that nature, on something flat, you want a touring kayak. If you just want to play, you know, on flat water or whatever, you need a recreational. If you want to go on raging rivers and jump waterfalls, like my husband did for fun, because he's weird like that, then you need a whitewater kayak, which is short and it's flat, but it's short because it kind of goes fast, but you're in a river anyway, so who cares? And then you can't have it long because you need to maneuver. So it's got maneuverability. So we have two that we throw in our pond and let our kids play in. It's a shallow pond and my kids are older, so it's okay. But yeah, in the spring and stuff with the pod melts, they'll go in the kayaks and stuff. But
I have a question.
yeah.
When you talk about a touring kayak, Now, is this a one-person kayak
Yeah,
or?
one.
Oh,
You can get two. I've seen touring kayaks in two, but they have two separate holes. One person sits here, one person sits here, two separate skirts because I mean, rolling over like in a touring kayak with two people. I mean, I just told you how difficult it is to get yourself up with one. I can't imagine what it'd be like with two. But those things are like 20 foot long. So yes, they do have, and the recreational kayaks, they have two. I mean, they have two-person recreational kayaks. They have open kayaks. The open kayaks are the ones that you just sit on. They look like surfboards and you don't have to worry about it. So if you fall off, then you get back on. That's all recreational, which works. I mean, that's what a lot of people use those because you don't have to worry about, if you fall off, you fall off. You just swim back to shore. You just carry your boat with you. Um, Also you have straps on your foot that attach to your boat so that you don't lose your boat.
so is it okay on this rolling over thing? I mean, it sounds to me as if you're just floating along, minding your own business. All of a sudden, you're upside down.
Recreational. Recreation. I know it's the way to go. It's the way to go. I mean, but like I said, if you want your characters, because like my book 5 is going to be whitewater kayaker, like it's going to be full scale whitewater kayaker meets and falls in love with a hockey player, because I mean it's two things that it's like awesome together. That's what I want. And it's going to be full-fledged whitewater kayaking, but like I said, I know how to do this because I used to backtrack. When I was in college, I worked at a dive and kayak store because I was a certified scuba diver and I was in college, so I needed money. So I used to sell these things. So I sold kayaks to pretty much, anybody who wanted them. And I had to learn how to, what kind of kayak would suit, what kind of person and what kind of gear you need and all that kind of stuff. So that's where I got the base knowledge for this stuff. But like, I've been in recreational kayaks, I've been in whitewater kayaks, but I've never been in a touring kayak because I have no desire to go on flat water. It was just like, it's boring. I mean, but it's beautiful. So, I mean, and you can fish out of a kayak. So, I mean, you can have, it's a huge thing in the South where you have like an open kayak, or you have fishing kayaks where you can literally fish out of your kayak. But the idea of sticking a fish in the kayak with me totally turns me off. So not going to write it down. But if you want a character that's like, I'm going to go fishing in a kayak because it's nice and quiet and it's beautiful out, then have at it. But you're not going to be rolling over in it.
So, what's the difference between a kayak and like a little skiff or a rowboat?
Motor.
Motor?
Yeah, and then a canoe. So the next step up from that is a canoe. A canoe is open. So a kayak is always enclosed, somewhat always enclosed, unless you have one of the open concept ones, which they do have. But a canoe is, like a canoe. So I mean, there's no skirt with a canoe. If you roll over in a canoe, you have to get out of the canoe. Like you can't right yourself as you go.
Okay.
Even though in the Olympics they have canoe races, which have skirts, which doesn't make any sense to me. But yes, a canoe is open. Anybody can go in a canoe. I think I have a love scene in a canoe in one of my books.
So, so you were talking about an open kayak. How does that differ from a canoe?
Not much, but it's a one-person thing.
Okay.
You sit on the top. So a canoe, with the open kayak, it's plastic. Oh, it's plastic. It's a plastic mold thing kind of thing. So, and it's flat. And then you've got a groove where your butt goes, and then you have these little notches in the front where you put your heels. And you don't have that in the canoe.
I see.
You just sit in a canoe. I mean, there's like benches, and you just sit there.
Okay.
And the canoe, that's the difference. The canoe has a one blade off the side. Okay, one, because you're going on one side. And then a kayak paddle has a blade on each side.
Right.
So if you've got a kayak paddle, it's got to have a blade on each side. And if you have a canoe paddle, it's handle paddle. Because you need this for leverage.
Over here and then over here and over here and over
here.
Yeah.
Right. So, I mean, that's probably why they get away with the whole skirt thing, in the like Olympics, because there's, a canoe. It's a different paddle, but I think that's like the only difference in the Olympics. But yeah, like it doesn't take any effort whatsoever to throw a canoe in the water for a story and like paddle. You know,
Okay.
easy to put love scenes in, but not when you're in a kayak. That's a single
Okay.
thing.
All right.
Skirt gets in the way.
Okay. Sherry, do you have any questions at this point about kayaks? Maybe not. You can unmute yourself, Sherry. So, and whoever's talking has full screen. So if you don't talk, you don't get on screen.
Dun
Okay.
dun dun.
Ta-da. Okay. Sherry has no questions. Oh, Sherry, we have a message from Sherry. She says
Oh,
no.
awesome.
All right. So have we covered canoes? I mean,
Kayaks and stuff.
kayaks?
I think so. Like I said, I don't have anything in my house except for like my bedroom, which I'm not going downstairs for. But it's yeah. So the kayak is enclosed, and there's three different types. There's whitewater, recreational, and touring. So it depends on what you wanted to have your MC do.
Okay, so moving on to scuba diving. Now, scuba diving is different from snorkeling because you actually have a tank on your back and something in your
Right.
mouth, right?
Correct. Correct. All right. And because I am crazy like that, I'm gonna move you over here. I want to see if this works. See if I can get some kind of a view of my bag. Can you see my bag? What? That's exciting. All right, cool. I was gonna have an external camera, but I didn't want to function today. So this is my dive bag, which I said I have not used in quite a long time. And you being a historical romance author might like the fact that this thing was my grandfather's World War II bomb ammunition bag
Oh my
from
gosh.
the destroyer that he worked on.
Oh my
Like,
goodness.
right? Because my dad's a pack rat, so this is my dive bag. He gets my grandfather's duffel for his dive gear because he used to dive in the 70s. Yeah. So he took that, I took this. All right, scuba diving. If you are in cold, cold water, you need a wetsuit. Okay? It is neoprene. Same idea as a seal. Not sure if you can see this.
Yep.
See, this is like the bibs. These are called bibs because they look like bibs. Okay?
Oh,
So
fancy
mine's a
Farmer
super thick
John's,
one.
huh?
Yeah, so it's in two parts because the idea, okay, so the idea with the neoprene, this, is it's squishy. And it's a wetsuit because you get wet in it. Okay? So you jump in the water and you get a layer of water inside of the suit. And your body heat heats that layer of water up. And then this keeps that layer of water on your skin, and that's how you stay warm.
Okay, so you're putting the suit on before you get in the water?
Oh yeah, everything's on before you get it.
Okay.
All of it. Okay. So dun, dun, dun. And then I don't have everything up here because that'd be weird, but this is like the top. So see how it's like it's zip all the way down?
Oh, uh-huh.
So this is like the top, and this goes over top of it. And I have two layers on because I did Great Lakes diving and it's cold up here. So wetsuits, this one is good to 45 degrees.
Meaning the water being 45
the water
degrees?
temperature.
Okay.
And if you're in the Great Lakes, any time of the year under 80 feet is 45 degrees.
Oh, all right.
There's these things called thermoclines. So the thermocline is every 30 feet and it goes down about 10 degrees-ish, depending on what time of year you're doing. Okay. So anything that's beyond this.
Somebody writing would need to know that, wouldn't they?
Yes, it's very technical. And there's lots of stuff on the internet. So wetsuit, 45 degrees, anything under that if you're doing ice diving, which is crazy. But if you're doing ice diving is a dry suit and your tank fills your suit up with air.
Ah.
It's harder because of a buoyancy thing, which I'll get to in a sec. Okay. Next up, I've got fins in here, like 4 sets of fins. They're not called flippers, they're called fins. Okay. These, if you'll notice, have these strappy things. Snorkeling fins usually do not. They are a full foot. You put your whole foot in these. These you can take on and off because I had booties, which I don't think I have in here because I think they're in the garage. So you have neoprene. I had neoprene booties. I have head to toe neoprene. I have a hood. I have gloves. I have booties. Okay.
And the
My
booties,
entire body is encased in neoprene.
okay, and so the booties go inside the fin.
Yep. They go on your feet just like they look like high tops.
Okay.
But they have a zip up the front. And they're neoprene, black. So these go on last because you don't want to walk around with these on because it's a pain in the butt. Also, if you're walking around with these on, walk backwards. Okay. Next, if you're writing about scuba diving, you need to go through dive charts. This is so you don't die. Dying is bad.
Dying is bad. Yes, it doesn't really make for a good
run out of air and run out of air. Okay. And then this, which is this is a chart, which you probably can't see really well, but this is a chart. It's called a dive chart. They have computers that do this for you, but this is for people who don't want it, who want to think, I guess. I'm not sure. The idea being that if you're down for X amount of time, you have a nitrogen buildup in your body. Okay. Now, this nitrogen buildup is because when you exhale, you can't get rid of the nitrogen. I don't know why. It's a pressure thing because you're down at pressure and the nitrogen, it's just like a balloon, you know, when it like you're under pressure and like if you take a balloon, a fully inflated balloon at 35 feet is half the size.
Wow.
Yeah. So if you are underwater, like your body will absorb nitrogen, which is if your body can't absorb that nitrogen naturally, it will have a bubble that bursts and gets into your bloodstream and eventually will go to your brain and you will have a stroke and die.
And that's what the bends is about?
It is. Yes, it's a nitrogen bubble. Yep.
Okay. Why do
So
they
the
call
idea
them
is that you can dive is like the chart tells you the depth that you're diving and the length of time that you're diving for. And then when you come back up to the surface after that time, there's a certain time that you have to stay above the surface in order for your body to naturally ingest the nitrogen so that doesn't happen. So if
so
you're
you
doing 2
can't
dives
just
a day,
go down for a couple of hours, come back up, get a new tank, and go down again.
Yeah, you got to wait. I mean, it depends. And also, just to let you know, one tank, not a rebreather, which is totally different. Normal recreational diving on one tank of air at 100 feet, which is your max. Okay, max on one tank, 100 feet down. You have 8 minutes of downtime. Well, that's it.
Not very
8
long.
8 minutes of downtime.
So you're diving down, that takes a little bit of time, and you have to come up, and that takes a little bit of time.
Yep.
Well, while you're down there, you can only be 8 minutes.
Right. And the time down, okay, so you're down there, and then you have to come up when you have gauges, which I'll show you in a second. So you have gauges, and your gauges tell you how much air you have left because air matters. You're at 3,000 psi in one tank, which anyway. And if you have 2 tanks, then it's even more dangerous because you have to watch how long you're down for and then how long you come up. Because remember I talked about like the different like the pressure differences, you know, when you jump in the water and your ears pop, it's like 90 feet is like triple that. So like when you come up, you cannot ascend any faster than the smallest air bubble out of your regulator. Okay. That's the easiest way to remember it is you cannot ascend
as your air bubbles are going
as you're exhaling and you're watching your bubbles, you cannot come up any faster than the smallest bubble out of your regulator.
Which is the beginning or the end?
The end. The going down, you can go as fast as you want as long as you don't pop your ears.
Okay. And so coming up though, you want to stay below your air bubbles.
Yep.
Okay, that's important.
And then if you're down for too long, sometimes you'll have to do what's called a decompression stop. And a decompression stop is when you have to literally like hover at a certain depth for a certain amount of time to let your body ingest the nitrogen.
Okay. Now, you said when you're going down, you can go as fast as you want as long as your ears don't pop. And
Correct.
what's that about?
Well, you have pressure on your ears because there's fluid in your ears, but they're not the same pressure that of the fluid outside your ears. So it's the same idea as when you swim in a pool and you go down like in the bottom of a 12-foot pool and you're like, you feel pressure on your head and it feels like your ears are going to pop. Same idea because you're underwater. So what I do is I clear my ears every single time that I exhale. And that's the only way that I can do it. Like when you go up on a plane and you chew gum, you know, when you go up, it's the same idea when you go down.
How do you clear your ears if you've got this thing in your mouth?
I swallow.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Yeah.
So that's interesting.
Or bite my regulator, which I'll pull that up next. I know I got one in here somewhere. Like I said, the tank and the BC, which I'm going to go through the BC too. The BC is called a buoyancy compensator. All right, regulator, mask. And just to let you know, you do have a snorkel when you dive.
Oh,
why? Because if you're on the surface, why would you waste your tank? Right? So that's why this is here. So if you're on the surface going from like, I used to do wreck diving. So if you're on a shipwreck, you jump off the boat and then you swim to a buoy. There's always a buoy there. And then you follow the line down. So you have to get to the buoy somehow. So you put this in your mouth so you're not wasting your air.
Oh, okay.
That way you can swim and you can see where you're swimming. Okay. I'm gonna grab my mask out of here too while I'm dumping my entire dive bag on the floor. But that's okay. My dog just gave me a dirty look. That was really funny. He's like, "What are you doing?" I'm like, putting my stuff in his chair. This is his chair. Okay, so mask. How do you clear a mask? You ready? So if this is on your face, so if this is on your face, what happens if you get water in it? And you're underwater.
I don't know.
Right? Okay. So you tilt your head back and you put your hand on your forehead and you exhale out your nose.
Oh.
And what that does is it puts air in here and it displaces the water up down here. It'll break the seal and displace the water.
Huh. Interesting.
Little trick. Okay. Regulator. I need my glasses back on because I can't see. Okay, regulator. Here we go. I'm going to have to move you because I have to stand here. Yoink. All right, so tired of hanging over my chair. This is a regulator. This right here goes on your tank. This is what, so you have this tank on your back and you have what's called a BC or a buoyancy compensator, which I think mine's in the garage. But so the buoyancy compensator is a vest. Okay. Everything attaches to that vest and it literally is just a vest. And the tank attaches to your back. And then this attaches to the tank valve. So this is how you get your air. Okay. Right here. So this, you unclip this and this goes on your tank. So I'll put that in a minute. So if that attaches to your tank, that means that my tank's on my back and I have a vest on. And I have, these are the most important part of this. This is a regulator, okay? This is what goes in your mouth. This is like the most important part because this is where you breathe. So you have this thing where you can clear it right here and there's a valve on the end. Stick it in your mouth. Air comes out right here. Right there. Air comes out.
Okay,
right
so
there.
you're breathing
this
through
is
your
where it's-
mouth?
Yep. So it comes in here. It comes in here and then it goes out on the sides.
Okay.
Okay. Like this. So this goes in your mouth and this is your primary regulator. Okay. Primary. Then you have this thing that attaches to your buoyancy compensator. So you have this, it's okay. So when you're diving, you have like, you sink, right? Like if you throw something in the water, it's going to sink to the bottom. So when you're at the bottom of a lake or something or a reef and you can't touch the coral because you'll cut yourself, you have to get what's called neutral buoyancy. Neutral buoyancy is where you're floating and it looks like you're swimming through the water. The way you get that is by adding air into your vest. If you're in a dry suit, then you don't need the vest because your dry suit is the vest, which it becomes dangerous at that point if you're in a dry suit, because I've heard of horror stories of people where they, like, instead of doing this, like their feet get elevated and then all the air rushes to their feet and then they shoot to the surface.
Yep.
Which we just described that that's not a good thing to do. So yeah, that's like a step up. So regular commercial diving, super easy as long as you remember to watch the air bubbles and to watch your gauges. And the whole, if you go through diving classes, the whole trick when you're in a pool, because it's always in a pool, is getting neutral buoyancy. And it takes a little bit to get that right, because this is how this right here attaches to your buoyancy compensator with a valve, and the air from your tank goes into your vest when you press a button. You press a button. So you press a button and it fills. Okay? And then you press another button and it releases. Done. So air goes in, air comes out. So you want to let air out of your vest when you're going down, and you want to let air in your vest when you're at the bottom. Because you're like a couple squirts, like squirt, squirt, and you'll feel yourself rise. And you want to be like that far off the ground. If you're on sandy, silty, bottom, the worst thing you can do is kick and then have a cloud. Then you can't see a thing. So that's why you need to stay above the sand. And that's how you do it, is with this. Okay. This, as you can see, also has a mouthpiece. This works as a secondary regulator. So if this malfunctions, you have a spare.
Okay.
Interestingly enough, my father told me a story when he was diving back in the days of Cousteau. And my uncle was with him, and he got caught in a fishing net and lost his regulator because it got caught on something and was free flowing. And my dad, because they didn't have these back then, my dad had to give him his and cut him free with this gigantic Bowie knife thing that he had strapped on his leg. And like saved my uncle's life, which ironically enough, I put into my YA novel, which is coming out in the summer. Like that's the whole opening scene of my YA novel. But it's also like between teenagers, and it's like in Mackinac, and nobody dies or anything, but yeah. So it's pretty cool. Pretty excited about that. Okay, last thing before I get too far into this. Gauges. Okay, so I have really old gauges. I don't have a computer in here. They have computers that are the same thing. They just pop right in. There's this console thing. This is called the console. And these things just pop in. So if I had a computer, which I don't, it would go where the compass goes. So this is a compass. And then you have to know at all times your depth, and PSI. This is your air. This is how deep you go. Those two are important.
So the PSI, that tells you how much air is in your tank?
Correct. Yep.
Okay.
Yep. You start out it says 5,000, but 3,000 is usually what a tank is filled to. That was my job in college. I had to fill tanks. I would know. Okay. So yes, those two things you have to know. Like this is just a compass. Like this is usually where a computer goes, but this is called a console. So that's where this goes. So I think other than that, I think we're good. I don't know if I've got anything else in my bag of gear or not. It's funny because I do this every once in a while for my students, even though I teach English, because why not? If you are out in the middle of a lake by yourself, you need to have a dive flag on a buoy so that you don't get run over by a boat when you come up, which would be a super cool trope. Just throwing that out there.
So I'm under the impression you should never dive by yourself.
No, always have a dive buddy. Always.
Okay.
Always.
So you're out diving, and so you what this is what?
Dive flag.
Yeah, and how does it work?
It just this tells boaters that there's somebody underneath here that might surface and you can't run over.
So how does it float?
Yeah, but the buoy got destroyed from my kids. because
Oh,
it's
okay.
an
So
inflatable.
I get it. So you might not be anywhere near the flag though
Nope,
when you come
it's
up.
above you. No, and if
Does it
you're
always
either
stay above
attaching
you?
it to something or you attach it to yourself and it follows you.
I see. Okay.
Also, um, if you want to get super technical and fancy with this, the second that you go into, and this is where the romance part comes in because it's funny. So the second that you enter a wreck or go inside of something that is under the water, it's called a penetration dive. Can't make this up. So if you are doing a wreck,
I'm sorry.
I know, right? Who comes up with this? Guys, because scuba was totally a guy thing up until like, I don't know, 30 years ago. So anyway, if you are going to penetrate a wreck, which is, like I said, hilarious, you have to have a rope attached to you so that you can find your way out, like labyrinth style, like in the Minotaur thing story from Greek mythology. Um, all of the I not okay, so all of the deaths that I heard about in the last 30 years of recreational divers is that they did a penetration dive without a rope, felt super confident, got vertigo, lost where they were, ran out of air.
Oh my, yeah. Yeah.
Like I
That went
said,
like
going too fast and getting the bends and running out of air. Those are your two. Those once you get past that, you're good to go. Like there's nothing else you really need to worry about. So
okay. So so a person would probably be very smart to go to dive school before they.
you have to, unless you go on in a cruise, the Caribbean, something of that nature. Even if you do that and you're at a resort and you want to go diving, they still put you through a mandatory dive class unless you have a dive card.
Okay. And so like most people like practice in a swimming pool where they can like get out
Mm-hmm.
easily. Okay.
Yep, dive lessons are not cheap, FYI. Um, they're not going to get cheap anytime soon because that's a lot of gear to keep you alive. If you're down in warm water, you might or might not need um a suit. So, I mean, you can, and they have different levels of neoprene, different millimeter thicknesses of millimeter of neoprene. Mine is 8 millimeters, which is like stupidly thick. And like the ones that you do like in the Caribbean stuff, those are like 2 and 3. So
Just a
that's just so you
silly
don't get
little
chilled or anything.
millimeter, huh?
Yeah, millimeters. I know, because we're like, in America here, we don't use that, but everywhere else in the world.
Yeah.
Yes, I know.
All right. Well, Sherry, any questions? Yeah, the gal that is including the kayaking thing in her novel, in her sports romance, she said that she really wished that she was here so that she could ask live questions. But
That's all right.
I will also let everybody know because I believe that you're now one of our group experts, aren't you? Didn't you
I
accept?
think so, yes. That's
Yeah.
exciting. Yeah.
So, and yeah, every once in a while, if you just want to post something about, if you have questions, thank you, Sherry. If you have
Yeah,
questions,
that's fine.
to contact you because, yeah, some people would have questions about that. I don't
Okay.
know enough about it to ask an intelligent question, though.
It's not easy. I stick to the things that I know. So it's like, and for me, I think writing about these are easier because there's more things to describe and there's more technical terms and things that you can look up. Like I really think because I have a music degree as well. I have a master's in education and it's English. And then I have a music degree, so I teach choir. And it is ridiculously hard to write about singing. You know what I'm saying? So it's like I could, go through all of, because I do that for a living, but I could go through like that as well with somebody, but I honestly think that that would be harder to discuss. Like I said, this is like technical stuff. So obviously if you have any questions, like let me know on that, but I can also answer questions on singing, like actual operatic singing because I was trained in that. Um and and then probably hockey, and that would be because of my husband and my sons. So
All
That would
right.
be why. Because he's my go-to for all things kayak related that I don't know, which there's isn't much I don't know. I just the roll thing is probably the most important thing for the kayak. But for the scuba diving thing, like I used to help with open water dives and stuff on that. So I mean, it was my job to literally follow the cloud of people because there was always whenever there was an open water dive with students, as part of a class and we're in a lake. They had you could see like I would be about 10 to 15 feet above the bottom and there was a cloud. It was just a silk cloud. I couldn't see a thing. And he'd tell me, he'd be like, okay, I'm going to direct the silk cloud. And if anybody comes out of it, you put them back in it.
Oh. The only thing I know about scuba diving is Lloyd bridges, of course.
Right? Because I mean, right, it's a lot of fun. Like honestly, it's a lot of fun. But the class thing is necessary because you can't get a tank filled if you don't have a dive card.
Oh, really?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Scuba diving or snorkeling, anybody can snorkel, and that's mask, fin,
I'm
right?
sorry.
Like,
I could not snorkel. I tried when
oh,
I
it's
went
so
to Hawaii. I
hard.
could not snorkel.
Oh my gosh, it's so easy. Like you just put fins on your feet and you go super fast, and then like you the mask and I mean, okay, well, seeing how I have this
I
up, I'm gonna.
couldn't get the handle of breathing through my mouth.
Okay, so your nose is gonna be in here anyway, so this is like your nose, so you're not breathing out of your nose. Um, And this thing flips on. If you're diving, your regulator always your primary air source is always on your right, which this is my right. And then your secondary is always on your left. So when you're diving, the snorkel goes here and your left. And if you're snorkeling, it goes on your right. Now, when you go underwater, because this is going to go underwater sometimes, you're going to get water in this thing. You are going to take the rest of the air out of your lungs and you're going to blow into this thing. And it's going to turn this into a water cannon, which is what my kids do in my pool all the time, all summer. It's snorkels and water cannons because they think that's funny.
They
And
think
then my
they are
daughter's like,
little
that's so gross. And
whales.
I'm like, they're boys. So yes. But yeah, so that's how you do that. And that's literally all you do. You just float on the surface and you look down and then you breathe out of this thing. That's it. So with or without, any additional whatever you want, but it's super cool. Like I used to, my 8-year-old wants to go like scuba diving. And I'm like, dude, you're a tad too small. Like you got to be 12 to get certified. So that's not going to work. And there's scuba certification places all over the place, but be forewarned, they are not cheap. So just and it's bookwork. So you have to because you have to learn the dive tables and like all the stuff that I just said about not going too fast, and the PSI and downtime and all the scientific stuff and behind it. But then they'll throw you in a pool and it's usually about 6 hours worth of pool time. And then you have to have 2 or 3 open water dives that aren't in a pool, but they have to be in some kind of like water area, which I mean, like I ran into my old dive instructor like a couple weeks ago, which is crazy because I hadn't seen him like 20 years. And he was doing pool classes with the same place that my son had a hockey tournament at. So that was kind of crazy, but yeah. So he still runs them and then they'll do like in the winter there's a lot of hockey. There's a lot of like pool classes and in-person classes and online classes and stuff that he does. And then once the snow thaws and there's no ice on there anymore, then he'll take people out and throw them in the water.
Ah,
It was October when I did my open water dive in northern Michigan.
oh my goodness.
It was 34 degrees.
Yeah, so much for that 45 degree,
It
huh?
was it was like and it was only like a 30-foot deep, mini lake thing, but yeah, it was it was cold. I remember it being very, very cold. And once you get in the water, you're warm because you have your body temperature heating that layer of water up, so you really don't have to worry about it. But the initial jumping into water that's cold, it's shocking because you have to get that layer of water. And so it's like you're sitting there and you can feel this water trickling through and it's like, oh, it's so cold.
Yeah, I have never done that, but my husband he had snorkeled, and we lived at the mouth of the Columbia River. So,
Oh, nice. That's so cold.
yeah, very cold. And he was saying that the hardest part of ever doing anything was that first getting in and letting the water into the wetsuit. So,
Yes, and it
and
is.
and
And
there
you
are
can feel
so
it. It's
many
cold.
surfers there, and it's really kind of creepy when you're sitting at this one place that's called the Cove, and you're sitting there watching the waves, and all of a sudden you see these black things raise up out of the water and start coming to shore, and like, oh, creature of the Black Lagoon, but they're just
Yep.
surfers.
Oh, my dad used to take me snorkeling and stuff off boats. I grew up on lakes. So, he used to take me when we were really little, and there was this like drop off area that we all would just go to, and it was rock, and it was, I remember him showing me, he's like, put this mask on, and I'm like, okay, whatever. I was probably like, I don't know, maybe 9 or 10. And, there was this huge northern pike, like 4 feet away from me. This thing was like, huge. I mean, huge. You know, have you ever seen those things? They look like dinosaurs in fish form. I mean, their
Oh,
teeth are all jagged, and I was terrified. I'm like, what is that? Like, I don't want to see that. No, I'm not going to this water again.
yeah,
It
that would,
traumatized me.
that would be kind of scary. Okay, well, Catherine, I thank you for sharing the information that you have.
You're welcome.
I think it's wonderful. I will get this put up onto YouTube in the morning and post it in
Okay.
the Facebook group that is available for viewing. I
Okay.
thank you for your time. That was
Thank you.
wonderful. All righty. You have a nice evening.
You too.
Okay, bye bye.